Hey everybody, welcome back to Council's Judgment. Been a long time. Spencer here, playing host, and today I'm joined by Trent.
Hello,
Trent.
hello. It's been a long time for Council's Judgment, exactly a year for me, or almost exactly a year for me, so I'm glad to be back on.
Yeah, Trent, thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to have you guys on. I know that you and Jer and Liam have also been running your own kind of content and commenting on the format. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Give a little plug?
Yeah, so we've been doing our channel LJT I think we might be posting this on the channel as well, but if we aren't, that's totally fine. But if you want cool Canadian Highlander content, LJT it's a place where me, Liam and Jer play a bunch of different archetypes, but we also talk about different things related to Canadian Highlander, from mulliganing to different deck techs for archetypes. We talk about what we think's good in the format. Usually, we do like a sort of power rankings every quarter. So, if you want to learn more about Canadian Highlander, or you want to see just some fun gameplay, or decks that you may not see every day, our channel is the channel for you.
Nice, nice. Usually people try and do the plugs at the end, but I thought, as a homie, do it at the beginning.
Might as well fire it off right at the beginning.
Exactly, exactly. So last year, Trent, you were the commentator on the top eight, and I believe there's a previous year you did that as well.
Yeah, so I've been commentating the top eights for the last 3 years. I started in 2022, which is the year that Jack won with Mono White Death and Taxes. And then I commentated the following year, which is the year that Jeskai Green won in the hands of Thomas Simmons. And then I had the pleasure of commentating last year as well, when Noel took it down with Black Red Midrange. So, yeah.
Nice. But this year, you're ranked number one seed for the YJ Monday Night Highlander 2025 Victoria top eight. You are 9 qualifier points.
Yeah, I've been cooking this year. I've got a bunch of qualifier points on some different decks too, so that's pretty nice as well. Like, it's nice to know that I'm not necessarily just being carried by Jeskai, you know?
Mm,
Eh.
I'd say Flash and Jeskai put in some strong work for you. But
Well, you
yes,
know,
yes.
I've got a black red mid range win. I've got a scape shift win. I've got an Esper mid range win. You know, there's a little bit of pepper in this stew. You know what I mean?
You got some you definitely spiced it up near the end there, and I appreciate that. When you had the comfy 6 point lead, you started flexing, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love I'm not a big risk taker personally, so once I had the lead, then I decided that flexing was in short order. I do miss playing other archetypes. Jeskai and Flash are really great, and obviously winning is fun to a certain extent, but there's something about Flash and Jeskai that don't really feed the soul the same way as like Craterhoof or Scape Shift does. Even just playing like Black Red mid range was still really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about the year in review, and then we're going to kind of go through the top eight. Yeah, how was 2024 for you?
Yeah, so for me, it's been pretty good.
And by that I mean 2025.
uh, for 2025, it's obviously been good in terms of my win rate at Monday nights has been pretty solid. I feel like I've been learning a lot about the format. This is one of the only years in the last little bit that I've actually dedicated myself to making sure that I'm playing Mondays, and so it's nice to see that. Um, when I do put the time and effort into making sure that I'm showing up and I'm playing good, solid archetypes that give me a lot of agency and options that I'm able to convert like into wins. Because the only other time I've made the top eight was back in, I believe, 2017. Um, it was a top eight where I ended up spiking like two or three events in a row near the end of the year, with Hoof to actually come, I believe, third in the standings by the end of the year. And it's just nice to know that if I do put my mind to it, that I can actually like make it there. That being said, I'm curious like how your year has been, because you've been kind of stunting with a bunch of different archetypes over the course of the year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well. I did start the year strong with some Nadu victories, more like just trying to prove once again like that deck's good. And I feel like sometimes, to get cards moved across the point finish line and to the local counselors, you need to kind of beat them with it almost if they don't understand that archetype or understand that individual card power sometimes. So I mostly was trying to do that to express that archetype that I feel like I've been one of the primary developers of a lot of the decks. I think it's taken its own form now and it's kind of going well. And then I spent a lot of credit and a lot of two-twos and three-ones with Allure and Hoof and Elves and all sorts of other creature combo decks like Seeker and Blinking combo decks and things like that. But yeah, as is every year, then I get a little in the middle season and then I take my break when I got to go to work and I'm on the road for like 4 months, 5 months. I got to come back and then I'm like, all right, I gotta seal up this top eight
And
for
that's
the
when you
year.
pull out Time Vault.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'd say like not. I think Natu and Time Vault are the two decks I think that I've put a lot of reps in. I think a lot of people don't know me as a combo player. So I know like particularly at Monday Night Highlander, I think everyone thinks of me as like a creature combo often or a fair creature deck, but they don't know that I pretty much exclusively at competitive Magic have played combo decks most of my life. So I'm just like especially an AB combo deck time vault, I think is actually pretty solid to pilot. Like there's a lot of interactions there too, so it feels like a bit of a mid-range deck, which is kind of like a bit more in my wheelhouse than a like velocity one. But yeah, it's felt pretty solid. I think I'm gonna try and go for the hat trick next Monday and see how that goes. But and I've already called shot it, so obviously I'll get to the finals and then lose.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I'll show up and try to Dream Crush you.
Ah, perfect. The saga continues. Um, but yeah, so I think that deck's pretty solid. I think this whole year is, obviously locally and abroad, we've definitely seen like the dominance of blue mid-range. I think like our mid-range pointings maybe snipped the four-color decks a little bit. Unfortunately, maybe Czech got snipped too hard too soon. Um, but I definitely think that both that and the Sol Mana decks kind of preying on them a little bit have managed to keep the four-color blue spew decks in check. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're like whenever you're switching to a different like pointing philosophy as we've seen in the past year, there's going to be some like kinks that you have to iron out over the course of time. And I think you're absolutely right that you know, Czech especially did get hit pretty hard in a way that makes it a lot harder to justify adding that fourth color for that archetype. But I think in general, the idea of pointing mid-range threats or more quote unquote fair decks has been pretty beneficial for the most part. Like when I came back to the format like a couple years ago after taking a little bit of a extended break, um, I was really against pointing fair cards. Because historically, I don't think that's really been the best way to leverage the points list as a balancing tool for the format. But I have really come around on pointing the fair cards that really do push into that next tier. Like they aren't just really good, they're like oppressively good in ways that other cards just don't really do the same thing. So I think I've been pretty happy overall with the pointings this year. I mean, there's always discussion on what could go up or could go down, but I think for the most part, like I've been pretty happy with the change in how we're pointing cards and like what considerations go into that. And I think that change makes a lot of sense for the future because as we know, like Magic design is not going to be going away from creating really powerful threats, right? Like powerful spells don't get printed nearly as often as powerful threats anymore, and they're going to continue to push the envelope, and we need to be prepared when those threats that are definitely over the top, things like your White Plume adventurers, um, we need to be prepared to have real, like very realistic conversations surrounding those cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think, we've tried to like slowly adjust the lever. I mean, and I've wrote about this, and I think in a few posts before, but yeah, I'm definitely conservative when it comes to making large format changes. I, you know, like I've been on the council the longest. And I think that that conservative nature is shared typically by many other counselors, not always been the case. Not to say that we haven't made big drastic changes over like the course of the format's history, but I think generally people that get into like eternal-ish formats, especially like and formats like this, it's like they don't want to see a format that's like changing all the time, or maybe like their deck gets invalidated or their cards get invalidated, especially if they're making like a strong purchase to like, finish their deck. And, I think that lends itself to people like having faith in the format. It's like, oh yeah, like I'm not going to get my modern or legacy deck banned out here. So,
Yeah, or like if their deck is getting pointed, it makes sense, right? Uh, the fourth Aer Lingus pointing, for example, right? Like that's within like the last year, I think, and or maybe year and a half. But like, no one's saying that that card doesn't deserve to be points anymore, right? And when it did get pointed initially, I was actually pretty skeptical personally, but I think it's really proven itself, and the um, I think I also take a pretty conservative approach when I'm thinking about the points list. But again, I really think these changes change my mind about how we look at mid-range cards specifically. Um, so I think you guys have done a really solid job of that transition, especially bigger changes in the format, like a change to the way that the counselors are handling the points is um, pretty drastic, and that it needs to be handled with care. And I think you've done a really great job at that with the tools that you have. Obviously, I mean, it would be a lot easier if we had a bunch of data and we had thousands and thousands of games that we could draw information from, but that just isn't really the world we live in when it comes to Highlander. And so the counselors, the reason that they take up that mantle is because they are willing to put in the effort to test these strategies, test these cards, but also to like, I mean, at the end of the day, you just have to think a lot about it. Like, it's unfortunate, but the changes we make like can't be really fully data based. Like, we actually have a way larger subset of data now than we used to. So I guess you do get to leverage some of that, like things like the Winners Archive or what people are playing all over the world. But it's still like very incomplete. So I think you've done a great job of that.
nice. Yeah. And like, obviously, like now that we have the Winner's Archive, there's like finally like actually, like, you can look back and go over some data. And obviously, we have like local data, but, for example, like the second most winning deck after just mid range locally is Goblins. So, I mean, like, that's not like probably
Yeah,
something that's going to be replicated abroad, nor is there any cards in that deck that I think are problematic. That's more like a targeted player slash like meta consideration. So obviously I'm never like, oh yeah, goblins are a problem, but or like third is like Rakdos and Jund midrange, which I think is more like red black's just very solid. Well, yeah, no, I think, well, we got some, maybe I'm sure like Jeskai mid can catch this upcoming stray that they might get in their deck and be fine, so they won't need to be invalidated, but I'm sure they won't be like having to change their deck too much. And also they'll still probably be the deck to beat, I think, in the format. Which is just true. Like I think of strong internal formats for Magic the Gathering, blue wedge decks are always going to be kind of like a premier deck, and people can like adjust their decks as necessary to either attack that deck in particular, its number two, three decks, or the meta that's trying to attack it. And rogue decks in this format are obviously more common than like any other format essentially. So,
yeah, like
um,
Just Guys and Blue Mid Range's big strength is like um your threats are getting more and more efficient as they print more like better and better creatures, but your counter spells are also really, really good in a format where um there are no duplicates, right? Like if you counterspell their, White Plume, the only way they have to play another White Plume is to get that back from the graveyard, right? And so uh like the blue decks really get to leverage those the mechanics of a 100 card singleton format in a way that they don't get to in 60 card. And 60 card is way more efficient as well. So like the average draw from a Canadian Highlander deck isn't going to like put you on isn't necessarily going to put you on the back foot, on by turn one or turn two, right? Sometimes it does. Obviously, with power, etc., we see that. But yeah, generally speaking, I'd say like blue's. You could point blue into the dirt, and I still think blue would definitely have a seat at the table.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's also, and particularly Jeskai, I think over even maybe other wedges, with the exception of potentially like Grixis or Esper, has the most functional reprints. So you have like such a high level of consistency. And I think that that's one of the reasons we see it as like the predominant deck, not because I think if you played like all these 100 decks against each other, I think it's probably like a 55% kind of deck, 52 to 55, which I think is kind of in the acceptable range of like a top tier deck. However, I think that good players gravitate towards it, and especially if it's like a tournament setting, because they're like, well, this deck has no real stinker matches. Like, there's a couple that are not good, but like, there's nothing that it's like, oh, I just GG that match. It has kind of game against everyone, and that's pretty consistent at a lot of the common decks where it's like has a slight edge. And if you can leverage a player skill, the consistency is like a big thing, and particularly also like hand sculpting effects that people are, typically like eternal competitive players are drawn to blue for their ability to kind of manipulate their hand and reduce variance, which I think is attractive for most tournament players as well. So I think that's another reason why we see Jeskai perform really well. Players that are quite good also will gain, like they gain a lot more percentage and equity by picking a deck like Jeskai that reduces variance, has hand sculpting, etc., as opposed to like a more of a dice roll deck.
Yeah, and like we can even see this in the beginning of our conversation when I was talking about my year, and I said I started to pick decks that give me more agency, right? And I started showing up with decks that give me more agency and leveraging my skill as a player. And I'm not saying that I'm necessarily like miles better than anyone else at YJ, but like I do think that I'm a pretty reasonable player, and that the reason I was choosing those decks is because I get more agency, because I have things like either counter spells if I'm and cantrips if I'm playing Jeskai, or cantrips plus tutors if I'm playing Flash Hulk.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe this is the talking about the predator of the format, but potentially we might not even see one. Maybe only one or two in this top eight. But I'll just talk a little about the top eight for a second. Let's kind of go through it. So this year so far, and obviously there's still a few more QBs available for the year, but so we'll see how this shakes up. But I'd say like it's pretty solid, unless maybe like the ninth or tenth place go on a serious heater. But I think it'd be pretty hard to upset. So going from eighth to first. We have Greg, Cameron, Matthew, myself, Tim, Jason, Jared, and yourself. I thought we'd just kind of go through each player from the eighth to the first, just maybe talk a little bit about like what kind of decks we could see them on, and then let's talk kind of like the meta theory of like, okay, going into like this variety of decks, maybe even our own pods, like what was kind of like the tournament prep, what would you think of meta choices, and maybe even like the personal deck choices we're thinking about bringing. So
Yeah,
we'll just,
definitely. Where do you want to start?
oh, let's start with Greg. So an eighth seed, Greg. Performed really well historically, also as a red player, but has done a lot with red black this year. And I'd put that person on red black deck, a red black mid range deck for sure.
Yeah, I think when I'm looking at smaller metagames like this, uh, I like to think of which players are pretty much guaranteed to play a deck that we know they're going to bring to the table. And when we think of Greg as a player, he has played mono red, green red blitz, and black red mid range this year for the most part, with a couple of cute card choices here or there, things like Ruination. So he could be on something a little more aggressive, and I know Greg has a real love of mono red specifically, but also loves green red blitz. However, I think black red mid range is a fantastic choice. Just in general, the deck is really powerful. It has a lot of game against every archetype. Like you're not totally stone dead to combo. I think depending on how you build your black red mid range deck, you can actually have a really good fair matchup. Specifically, you can have a really good matchup into Jeskai if you want it. So, since I'm playing Greg in the first round, it'll be really interesting to see what he ends up bringing to the table, because he could bring a bigger black red mid range deck to try and combat me if I'm bringing say Jeskai or Esper or some sort of blue mid range deck. Or if he is feeling feisty, he could just fire off mono red or green red blitz for style points.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to point out that Sasha, our co-host in Absentia and also counselor, is in ninth place, and I've told him he needed to show up with some combo decks, and he has ignored my advice. But maybe he could unseat the Greg, but we'll see. I think
Yeah, I
Greg
think
being a red
Sasha's the only
black.
one who could.
Hmm I think Greg on red black's like almost a lock. Just like looking at like I probably facing you round one, like your spread. He wouldn't want to be on red or blitz and risk you being on like flash or something like that. Maybe red black
Yeah, and
gives him.
one thing I want to talk about later is the brackets and how that could potentially
Hmm
influence
hmm
your decision as well. But I'm happy to move on to Cameron for now.
All right. Cameron's on Jund. Moving on.
Yeah, yeah,
Caracas will never be one, bud. Sorry.
Cameron is our local Jund aficionado. Has been playing around with different versions of Jund this year. I know him and I had extended conversations at the beginning of the year because I had tried out a Jund deck that was more centered around the Dark Confidant and Dark Confidant variants. And so he's been messing around with the amount of mana dorks he's playing, etc. But at the end of the day, the deck is going to be Jund. So we know that Cameron is going to be bringing a fair deck. Whether or not it's low Jund or full tilt mid range awaits to be seen. But yeah, we don't have to consider other deck choices for Cameron. Like he'll be bringing Jund for sure.
What do you think of Jund as like an archetype in general? Do you think that it is like unique in terms of its ability to mana excel? Do you think the green gives a lot, or do you think at its core it's just a red black shell? Because at the end of the day, I actually think the deck gets carried on the red black shell.
Yeah, I think the deck gets carried on the red black shell, but the green cards like sort of waver in importance based on the matchup.
Hmm
Like if you're playing against another fair deck, you want nothing more than to play turn one mana elf, especially in your mid-range deck that can handle your mana elf dying to a turn one fatal push or Swords to Plowshares, whatever. Uh, but if they don't remove it, being able to play one of the powerful threes that are in your deck, I will say that I think that Jund is one of the best decks in the format at like you have so many good three drops that powering out a three drop does really feel impactful almost every time. Whereas sometimes if you're powering out a three drop, it can feel less impactful in other decks. Like I was playing Boros this year, and sometimes you power out a three drop, and it's like your three drop is Boromir, Warden of the Tower. You know the card is good and has a spot in that list, but it doesn't feel the same as powering out something like a Lelia or a Gut or Bombardiers or Barrogoyf or Tarmogoyf plus another one drop, etc.
hmm
I also think Jund against combo decks specifically has one of the better like more fair game plans because you have the suite of discard spells and you can add in things like Deep Cavern Bat and Kitesail Freebooter if you want. And I know Cameron's actually been messing around with those cards, but you also have like a lot of draws that allow you to apply a significant amount of pressure. And one of the things that combo decks really don't want to see from their opponent is both disruption and pressure. And you can have draws in Jund that do both. So I think like the deck itself is really well rounded and is like a red black base deck, but the green can add a lot to sort of depending on the matchups or the metagame. You do lose a little bit in mana consistency as well as your top decks aren't as good in a lot of circumstances because you can still draw into the mana elves. Whereas if you were playing red black, you would either draw like a piece of interaction or a threat. And your blood moons are theoretically a little bit worse, although I think in practice that doesn't really end up being the case most of the time. Um, so yeah, like I think I respect Jund a lot. Like when Jund is across from me on the table, I know it's never gonna be free.
Oh yeah, particularly. I mean, Cameron has my number this year. I'd say like the amount of times I lose to that person. He always just has the op agent or the magus, whatever is gonna hoop me the most. The fury, reanimate fury, the like. He's just got me.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, like those play patterns that you're talking about are also powerful, right? Like, the Op Agent and Magus winning games on their own, like being able to reanimate a key Fury, or they also Jund incidentally has a ton of graveyard hate, like especially
Yes.
with the addition of Keen-Eyed Curator. Like Keen-Eyed, if you're playing Scavenging Ooze, you have Scoos, but you also have Endurance and like there's just and you can just add graveyard hate that ends up being good in a bunch of different matchups, which I also think is thing that a boon that green gives you that you don't get in black red, for example.
Jund, I do respect as an archetype, and I think it's got a lot of good play. I think it's a prison of its own pips. It's such a pip dense deck that unlike where red black, where I think you get away with Sol mana for your acceleration, and also you're not necessarily as hard on the pips. Um, you can't really exploit any colorless lands in Jund, which I think kind of reduce it. Also, it tends to get sometimes mana screwed. It needs like pip pip, it's one color, or like pip alternate pip. I've always found the mana to be in it to be quite poor. So that's one of
Yeah,
my
or you have to
issues. That's
make
always been one of
like
the issues.
concessions when you're building too. Like, are you going to play Keen-Eyed Curator and Douthly Voidwalker in your deck, right? Like both cards are good against graveyards. Both cards are excellent magic cards. So do you take the hit on your mana to play both of them because they're good? Like, are they good enough off curve if you end up not being able to play them on curve, etc.? Or like, if you're playing those heavier pips, does that mean that if your hand is a little land light that you feel forced to get a triome if you're playing one? Or like, do you have to play a triome potentially? Like, there's definitely a lot of considerations to your build of Jund. And I agree with you. Like, I think the one thing that has kept me away from playing more Jund this year and sort of leaning towards red black when I want to play that style of deck is that black red mid range's mana is really really good, and I think soul mana is like exceptionally good in that deck.
It adds like the high roll element. But yeah, we can talk more about the bracket stuff later, but definitely I think Jund's a contender as well. So we got red black, we got Jund, and then next up we have Matthew Greer.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think Matthew Greer could be on because like my only inclinations are that he could be on Jeskai or what he played last year to make it to the finals, Paradox Academy. So I'm curious what you think Matt Greer might be playing.
I think he tried to style with the artifact combo before and like almost got there. So and I know that he feels when he needs to win, he puts Jeskai in his pocket. So um I put it likely as a Jeskai mid range. But Matthew is a very flexible player, obviously plays a variety of artifact combo decks and like particularly Paradox, but also plays like Battle Bots. He's played other Tinker decks. He's played Time Vault. Um but he also likes Jeskai mid range and other sorts of blue mid range decks as well. So, flexible player. I'd put him on more of a blue mid-range deck than a combo deck this year, though.
Yeah, I know that he has been pretty happy with a lot of the additions to Jeskai this year, things like Corey Steelcutter. He's really been liking, and especially now that Jeskai has picked up a couple of extra like threats slash draw engines in Quantum Riddler and Wan Shi Tong. So my guess is that Macker would play Jeskai as well, but sort of similar to Greg, Macker definitely has the I just want to play something cool. You know, like I want to stunt, like I want to style. Like Greg could just play mono red because like playing mono red is so like against the grain. You know what I mean? I think I could see Matt doing the same thing, but if I had to put money down, I'd put it on Jeskai for sure. Or a blue mid-range deck.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Next up, myself, for
Okay.
now.
I'm gonna say what I think you're gonna play. Are you ready?
Yes.
I think you're gonna waffle as you always do, and
Yes.
then I think
Oh,
you're gonna end up
classic.
playing Nadu.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
I think there's something about Nadu that like speaks to you in a lot of ways, and I think your strengths as a player, you are really good in a ton of areas. But specifically, you spent so long playing Legacy Elves, and the Nadu deck feels really similar in a lot of ways, especially like after seeing it transform and evolve over the course of the year. I think the only really interesting thing about what you're going to end up playing is like what version do you end up playing if you do play Nadu, right? Because there's both the Spellseeker Time Walk version, but there's also the faster like Double Mox, Urza Saga, etc. I don't know if you have any opinions on which one you think is better, but
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I also once I played a bit of Hoof this year and I won once with Hoof, or an Elves Hoof deck, but The Nadu definitely feels more like Legacy Elves to me than Hoof, if that's makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't turn this
totally.
into an I don't know, I don't turn this into a 10-minute diatribe with Nadu, so I'm not going to. But um yeah, I mean like I think there's a combo version and there's a mid-range version, and then I think there's like an interactive version that's a little more toolboxy. But not necessarily like going hard for mid-range, more like toolbox and like combo. But yeah, I think the Moxen version is good if you're against combo decks. I think, and there's also a Seeker Walk version, which I find quite like toolboxy, but I think is very slow. But I think is actually pretty good against the blue decks. Um,
Do you think it's better into like a mid-range metagame as well? Because that's kind of looking like what we might have. So
yes and no. I think it's better into blue mid-range because you're just playing so much ETB and recursion, and you have some inevitability. Um, but I think it's worse in like some of the fair mid range because you just get high rolled and you don't have the ability to high roll other players. And I think it's okay into combo, but not as good as Mox because Mox you can threaten some like bananas turns.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's worth saying that like Spencer does have the capacity to just decide like, you know what? I think Time Vault's actually going to be really good in this tournament, or I think Hoof is really good in this tournament, or what have you, and play those decks and play them really well. I don't think you're necessarily locked to play Nadu, but like, from my experience and knowing you for many years, my guess is that you're gonna waffle and then find just whatever the best version of Nadu is for the field. And um, honestly, from my perspective, I think you might be best served doing that because I think, like at least from my viewpoint, you're probably the best Nadu pilot in the format. And I think it plays a lot to your strengths. And I know that you'll know the Nadu matchup, like your Nadu deck versus whatever they're bringing to the table, way better than they'll know their side of the matchup compared to you, right?
I also particularly value matchup knowledge, as you know. So yeah, unfortunately, but I don't be box into it. What I'll probably do is I'll make a couple deck lists for Nadu, and then I'll make a couple deck lists for Time Vault, Allurn, and Hoof, and I'll decide what land base looks the best of the betas that I have. And that's
And
that often is what cinches it is the look of the deck to me. I'll lay it out and I'll be like, yeah, it just looks good. Or I'll be like, ugh, I only have X beta cards of this, and I need the 11th forest, but I only have 10 foreign beta forests, you know.
yeah, I mean the
Or
vibes based playing is like right up your alley. So I
yeah,
totally agree with that.
100%. Whereas right like but I also unfortunately Nadu is cursed to me right now because there's one card, a Final Fantasy card that I just despise the art of, but is unquestionably like deserves to be in the deck. But I can't bring myself to play it. But also I'm like, I can't bring an unoptimized deck to a tournament. So
Which card?
Cloud,
Uh the Midgar mercenary himself.
yeah, the Skull Clamp draw four or find combo piece.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's quite powerful. But unfortunately, the art is just I am a Magic boomer. I'm one of the people that hates Universe Beyond. So
He's a
the
big
the
boomer.
the less UB cards I put in my decks, the more happy I usually am. So, uh, and there's some other card I have like the bad art version for that I'm still like, yeah, on. But
Look, we can hook you up. It's fine. But
all right. Moving on.
yeah.
Tim Mack, the Goblin King.
Yeah, there's nothing to say here. Mac's gonna play goblins.
Red
The
Black Goblins, though, I think is what he will be on.
Yeah, I think Mac was a holdout for a long time. But I think he got to the point this year where he realized that red black is just kind of where you want to be. I think like the second color doesn't really like add a lot of inconsistencies to your deck, but gives you a lot of different cards that end up being pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely played a lot of the red version, but I think he's got a lot of splashing black, and I think that, and over the years, like other top eights, when he's played, he's sometimes feared combo. He's also audibled to putting in some hand attack, like an op agent, and other sorts of attack cards to attack what he perceives to be a combo menace. And I think if he's playing me round one, he'll likely do that.
Yeah, and like if he's playing you round one, he could end up playing me or Jared at some point. And from his perspective, like he doesn't know if I'm going to bring Flash or if Jared's going to bring Flash or both of us are going to bring it. So I think that would make a lot of sense from his perspective.
Getting to the third place here, we have Jason Joven.
Uh, so Jason, we know, is going to play some sort of proactive creature deck. He's actually been playing a lot of different archetypes this year. I think the pointings that happened like earlier in the year surrounding Reanimate specifically, but a bunch of other cards that were in his Mardu tokens deck. Um, I think that deck is now 13 points. So he's been sort of like looking for a different home. My guess is that he will bring some sort of black-based mid-range deck or aggro deck. I don't really know exactly what that'll be, um, but I think he likes leaving home with his Thoughtseize and Inquisition.
Yeah, I mean, most of his decks are wedge or dual black. Like he likes green black. I personally think that it's probably like one of the less powerful decks that he plays. Um, but yeah, I could see him still also bottling to green black. It's still very strong, don't be wrong, but I think his some of his wedge color token strategies are extremely strong and have a lot of flexible play, and he knows a lot of matchups with them as well and put in a lot of reps, which I think accounts for a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if he puts me on Jeskai and not Flash Hulk and hopes to say dodge Flash Hulk from Jared potentially, then it's possible that he brings like a more mid-range like tokens deck that's designed to win a longer game off of Skull Clamp or a bunch of the different value draw engines that he likes playing, or like 4 and 5 drops that like really take over the game. Um, Jason plays a lot of mana sources in his decks, so like he very often is hitting 4 and 5 mana cards, and their impact on the game, generally speaking, is pretty outsized in comparison to like the lower costed spells that enter the game beforehand. So I could totally see him saying to himself, okay, well, if it's just going to be a mid-range slugfest, if Greg's on black red, Cameron's on John, Matthew Greer's on some sort of blue mid-range deck, then maybe I'll just bring like the best Skull Clamp tokens deck I can and win the longer games either via Skull Clamp, finding it from Cloud, as we just mentioned, or Stoneforge Mystic, but also winning longer games with potential draw engines, things like I don't know if he's still playing like Wedding Announcement or Aomor King of Rohan. He could theoretically bring back even just like a red white tokens deck. Something with like a couple more hate bears, maybe a little less Borosy as we know it, but like still playing the best of the best hate bears, but with a token sub theme. He's been trying out every different color combination for tokens, so yeah. My guess is that he'll bring some sort of black deck. I just don't know exactly what that's going to look like.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good assessment, but it'll be a fair deck.
Definitely, definitely.
All right, moving on to number two, Jared.
Yeah, Jared's a tough one because the decks that he plays are really polar opposite. I know that other people have this problem with me, and we'll get to that when we talk about what decks I could potentially play, but Jared has a bunch of success with both Flash Hulk and Boros. Initially, the year started off well for him with Boros. I think he claimed 3 QPs before switching to a not Flash Hulk, a different combo deck in sort of Dream Hall's Omniscience Show and Tell. Uh, and then because I was playing Flash Hulk and getting some wins with it, he asked me about the deck itself and like how I found it. And I said I felt like the deck was quite strong. There's like a couple of glaring weaknesses to it, but nothing that you really see at YJ. And so he ended up picking up the deck. He, I think, had a couple of 2/2s or 3/1s with it before really finding his groove. Flash Hulk is a deck that can take a little bit to uh, get your bearings with. The deck is very weird. Um, it's a toss up for me. I don't know if you have any strong feelings between Red White and Flash Hulk. Um, the only thing I would say is like Flash Hulk could potentially be dangerous depending on who you feel like you're going to be playing in the first and potentially second round. I know at YJ people have been adopting the hide and seek tech where you can cast, I believe it's Seek to take someone's only combo piece out of their deck. And if a combo deck like Flash Hulk, say versus like Time Vault or even something like the Dream Halls deck that he's been playing or that he was playing before, um, those decks don't just fold to hide seek, right? Like if they take your Time Vault, you can still beat them with Quanta Riddlers and Wan Chi Tongs and Bright Glass Gear Hulks getting your other different like levers that you can pull to accrue card advantage. So yeah, I'm interested to hear if you think he'll be on Boros or Flash Hulk. This is the one that I have no idea about.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could last minute audible to a combo deck, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't on Boros. I feel the Boros, but he's the only player where I'm like, no clue, coin flip, both ends of spectrum, you know? But I think Boros, or it would be even could be even Time Vault, but probably leaning towards like Flash. Maybe wants to style and do his show and tell deck, just to kind of like show it to a broader audience. I don't think that deck's well positioned into a bunch of black mid-range decks when it's kind of really reliant on a bunch of tutors.
Yeah, I guess if he thinks there's a bunch of black mid-range decks, maybe you play Boros because your matchup against Thoughtseize is like a little better, right?
Hmm. Then finally, we'll end on you, and then I guess
Uh,
we'll talk a little bit about brackets, and then we'll talk
you
about
should
like
guess
meta eyes.
what I'm gonna end up doing.
I think that you and I have prepared for many tournaments and are aware of each other's many waffles and quaffles. I think that you will waffle between doing what you think the good player should pick and styling. And I think that you probably perceive your strongest deck to be a blue mid-range deck, either Esper or Jeskai. And then we'll talk a little about the bracket, but I actually think your bracket will affect your decision more than the entire top eight decision. Um, and then between that and Flash, which maybe you perceive to be the best deck, um, but you would be able to express yourself more with the blue deck. I think that will be the final waffle. I think you'll end up with the blue deck for those reasons I said earlier, that competitive players tend to lean towards a deck that at least plays on a little more of a fair axis because it allows you to reduce the variance.
Yeah, so basically what I've been thinking about a lot is um like do I think I'm the uh like the favorite to win these 55 game like 52 to 55% games as you're talking about, right? And I think like a large part of my success in Monday Night Highlander this year has come with blue mid-range decks, but also has come with those decks playing off against players who are playing more niche decks that the blue deck preys on, right? And so it like even though I am more comfortable in Jeskai and I think I am better at piloting Jeskai or Esper than I am at piloting Flash Hulk, at the end of the day, like the reason I waffle is because I do want to be the type of player that would pick whatever the best deck is for my seat in the field. So
Hmm.
it'll really depend on, I think, what I'm feeling in the moment before we have to submit our deck lists. Like currently, for example, I recently went to a tournament in back in Chilliwack, and I played Jeskai and I got absolutely trounced. And it was not close. Really, really hard games, and that had me feeling a little disincentivized to play Jeskai. And so that's why you and I have been talking a lot about potentially like an Esper build that I could play, or um, viewers of the channel may have seen this video already or might be being posted soon. But I played a video where I played against Jer and I was playing Esper Red because I thought that I wanted to test a Jeskai deck that has access to Thoughtseize effects. Um, but yeah, I agree. I think my brackets is gonna impact my decision a lot. But there are also other considerations. Like in the previous top eight, the one where I top eighted with Hoof, I did post my entire deck list before the top eight just to stunt on everyone,
I
and then I
want to do that so
subsequently
bad.
got crushed in the quarters to, I believe I lost to Pat Berdusco. And like that was fun. Like I loved that. I thought that was so like so funny and cool. And it's like we all knew I was playing Hoof because I only played Hoof at that time. And so posting my deck list and not changing a card was like kind of just a fun thing to do. And so I think there is like a lot of value there to potentially bringing something that like might be unexpected. If the room is full of mid-range decks or Boros decks, like I could bring a copy of Scape Shift, right? That's like tuned towards fighting those particular archetypes. Um, and like I could also see myself potentially bringing something like black red mid range is a deck I'm like reasonably comfortable on. I know that Jer has been working really hard on a blue black more like a tempo-y deck that leans on just the best blue black threats plus the Harbinger of the Seas. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Harbinger of the Seas specifically in this top eight is actually really, really good. So there's a lot of considerations there. And I guess I don't want to necessarily play my hand out too deep, but if I had to guess future me's decision, I'm probably just gonna play a blue mid range deck. Like that would be my guess.
Like we're just like quarter pocketing both each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of see this top eight as you could the simplified version, I think, is that there is 3 to 4 mid-range decks splashing that are black X mid-range deck, and then you have three to four combo slash creature combo, maybe blue mid-range.
Yeah, definitely. And if we're gonna look at, I guess we should start looking at the brackets now. If you're ready to move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we're you and I are in separate brackets.
Yeah, which is why I
So
think me and you have had many discussions about like matchup stuff. Because even if I win once or twice more, it won't affect. We will be in a different bracket.
yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like y you and I aren't really going to be metagaming for each other for the most part. Like even if we were in the same bracket, I think the only time I would really consider metagaming against you, at least in the top eight, is if you were my first opponent. But so in my bracket, we have myself, Greg, Jared, and Cameron, I believe, right?
Hmm.
And so that bracket, if we look at it from an outsider's perspective, we definitely have a Jund player, right?
Hmm.
We have we're pretty sure we're gonna have a black red mid range player. Could be on mono red, but like we feel like it's more likely that black red mid range will make the appearance. So then the two wild cards in this bracket are myself and Jared. Now I know that I'm fighting Greg first, so I know I'm going to be fighting a mid range deck or an aggro deck. And the interesting thing about that is uh, since I am more comfortable on Jeskai, I think if I was just to fight Greg one on one for like I'm if I win, I'm winning. I would probably pick Jeskai. It's just a deck I'm really comfortable with. I think I'm a really solid pilot of that deck. But Jared being a wild card that could be playing Flash or Boros actually kind of messes up that potential plan for me because Flash versus Jeskai is a really tough matchup for Jeskai. Like I think based on being on both sides of the coin, my guess is that Jeskai has like a 35% win rate. It might be like 35 to 40. It's a really, really hard matchup
Disadvantage
because
for sure.
Flash is just way better at interacting on the axis that like they care about. And Jeskai just doesn't have that many draws that are good at both pressuring and backing up with counter magic that also allows you to win a little bit of a like an extended fight against them on their last turn, right? Like yes, you have Ragavan draws, and I've beaten Flash before with draws, like I play Tameo and then I cast Recall or I cast Brainstorm and yeah, I drew 8 points plus a Tameo. Like, of course I'm winning that game. But you also have draws where uh you keep a reasonable hand, you counter like the first two of their spells, but then you just don't have sufficient enough pressure. You land, a 3 or 4 drop that does apply some amount of pressure, but it's pretty slow, and they're just able to sculpt the hand that beats your leftover counter spell, right? So for me, like the reason we were talking about the bracket changing my decision so much is legitimately because of that Jared like uncertainty. If I knew Jared was playing Boros, I think I could easily register like Jeskai and be pretty happy into those three potential matchups, like the one I know for sure, which is Greg, and the other two. But yeah, like Flash Hulk being a possibility really puts me in a difficult position. I'm curious what your thoughts
Boros.
are on your position. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'll talk a little about your bracket from my perspective too. Like from like speaking to like your own metagame, is that also the potential of Jared to be on Boros makes me not want to play Flash because
Yeah.
Boros has these like random hate cards for you, like that are stupid and like hard to play around. And
Yeah,
like
definitely.
obviously you'll have deckless knowledge before like the game starts, but like there's so many cards that like I find Boros players register like as a graveyard player often like that just hose you. Like they have so much just random graveyard hate and like there's an uptick in people that like to play Containment Priest and there's just a bunch of ways where you're like, yeah, okay, I can just get got on this flash activation.
I think one more consideration that we haven't thought about is like from Jared's perspective, Jared knows that he's playing against Jund. And I think
Hmm.
Jund versus Death and Taxes or Boros is a pretty like it's not the worst matchup, but I think Jund is definitely favored there.
They're a
Um,
favorite. I think he'd be a dog if he picked Boros
and so
against Jund, so he's probably more likely to pick a combo deck.
and if he picks a combo deck, then it's better for me to play something like Esper if I want to play a blue mid-range deck, or for
Hmm.
me to play my own combo deck and just like go for the coin flip if it comes to that, right?
Yeah. I mean, you talked. I think a combo deck seems advantaged into this top eight. If you're like, oh, there's maybe a bunch of fair decks and a couple blue mid-range decks and maybe a couple combo decks, but because so many of the mid-range decks are Magus op agent decks, I'm like, I'm just, and maybe you're just braver than I am, but I am less keen to be playing a on a stack tutor deck, combo deck when like I perceive there to be minimum three op agents, potentially four, and one player who is either going to be on Stifle, like will be on like Stifle dot deck, uh, and other players who I think will be able to interact with me. So I mean, you're the Flash aficionado, but I just see a bunch of people that like op agents. I see some people that have like probably endurances. Not that actually endurance isn't not that anymore, but it's mostly just like op agents or mind sensors. And I'm just seeing like a bunch of them and like ways to protect them or stifle the first Hulk trigger. Uh, that'd be my also like the moons. Like I want to play a deck that I think has game against moon.
Yeah, definitely. Whereas, Jeskai definitely has, or Esper have a lot more game against Moon than say something like Flash Hulk, for
And and
sure.
I and no exaggeration, there are six players, and it's literally everyone except for me and you that is a moon. I'd describe them as a moon Moxen player, generally.
Yes, yeah,
This is
and
there's literally three of them that I'm like, I think almost all their wins are like on the back of Mox plus Moon. And then there's another three that I'm like, if they can, they will jam Blood Moon.
yeah. So, what about your side of the bracket? Like from your perspective, like how does the bracket impact your decisions?
I'm into Tim round one likely, and even if I win for this hat trick that I'm putting into the world, I'll actually still be facing him. So I'm pretty locked in facing Tim. I'm pretty locked in facing Tim. And then I have Matt and Jason. So I basically have tokens slash fair black mid-range, either artifact combo or Jeskai, and then I'm guaranteed against goblins round one. Um, yeah, and I'm pretty inclined towards like a Nadu or Time Vault. There's obviously part of me that wants to start with like an Allurin or a Hoof or something like that. Maybe we can gentlemen's agreement to both play Hoof.
Oh
What may I'll
no.
actually I'll talk to you after this. Maybe okay, here's the deal. Maybe we'll send each other a list and if we can agree on 98 cards, we'll play the same deck.
Okay. We'll figure this out
Okay, we'll
afterwards. We'll
figure
figure
this out
this out
afterwards.
afterwards. Yeah, don't want to reveal
Uh,
our secrets if we do
don't
end up
reveal
doing
our
that.
secrets. Maybe it's a maybe it's another funny creature deck that we're both known for. I don't know. I know I feel good about the Goblins match, like on all the decks that I play, so I'm not too worried about it. I mean,
Yeah,
I shouldn't say like I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna win. I mean, like I always enter top eights in tournaments playing to win, so I always have like the attitude of I'm planning on getting to the finals. But Tim could obviously just like skunk me. Like that deck has powerful draws. I often play 3 games when I face Tim, and I usually lose a game where I'm on the draw. He'll be play draw, he'll be on the play currently, so I think that gives like a bit of an edge. And yeah, I mean the Goblins just has strong draws. I think that Natty is pretty strong against Goblins. I think Time Wall's pretty strong against Goblins. I think Seeker sucks versus Goblins, so I wouldn't pick that.
Yeah, you wouldn't fire that off. And
Wouldn't
Hoof is like
pretty
kind of
good.
it's like reasonable, but it's definitely not as good as it used to be because goblins have that combo now.
Yeah, but my latest few like I've whenever I've played him with Hoof lately, it's been trouncing.
Hmm.
I'd say it's heavily advantaged if you're on one of my like wallsy kind of builds.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
definitely.
fast mana, draw card, wall builds, like you're not trying to like
So
suck it
if you
in.
feel like all of your decks are pretty reasonable into your like your part of the bracket, then as a player, do you think you are going to value familiarity in the matchups like more? I know you already heavily value familiarity in a matchup, but do you think like if all of your options are pretty equal in terms of what you feel like is like reasonable equity, like win equity, do you think you're supposed to just pick the deck that you're the most comfortable with?
Yeah, I mean I value reps and familiarity pretty highly. Like I consider it essentially like sideboard knowledge in this format particularly, whereas like, in other formats, I mean you will play like Legacy and some of Modern. Your sideboarding is arguably like which is your matchup knowledge, um, is probably the most important skill expression you can leverage often in a match beyond like simple like I played this, they play that sort of thing. It's like that the mulligan decisions in our format, what cards you're actually looking for, what cards are valuable, and what cards like will cinch the matchup, and how to protect them is the difference like winning and losing most games if it's not like extreme variance in first couple turns.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I speak about this a lot on the channel, but playing to the average instead of the extremes, right? Either way, like it it happens. Like sometimes they go land mocks, 2-drop land, 3-drop land, 4-drop, you're dead. But that isn't the average experience that you should be having, right, in this format. Like for the most part, like the games just aren't necessarily that fast, right? Like sometimes they can be, and in some rooms they will be, but for the most part, the average draw just isn't like nearly that fast. Or if it is that fast, they may have taken aggressive mulliganing positions to actually get to that point.
The Mox Soul Mana decks in our top 8, I would say are like that though. They're often people that play 2, 3, like they play 3 Moxen plus Chrome, and then are also on like other like Soul lands sometimes as well. So I almost think that like you're often okay, I'll probably 1 to 2 games this match they'll have a Mox opening. So I think you gotta kind of
Yeah, I
like
can't remember what the
account for
numbers
that.
are, but I think it's like if you have 3 mocks and a chrome mox and you mulligan once, it might be like you're 30% to have a mox in your hand or something like that. It might be a little lower. I don't know. Someone, someone in the
Some of these
comments
players,
tell me what. But yeah, some of these players are definitely drawing moxes a little like more often.
yeah, exactly. I'd say they're more like 80% to have Mox opening, but um so yeah, I mean like I account for that with like deck design, but I often play like more CMC1 removal interaction than a lot of other players do, even if I think it's like a sub value card, just to be like the percentage of me having one CMC interaction is higher than most people's tolerance for bad cards maybe, but I value functional reprints more. Not necessarily like a functional reprint of Bolt, but if I like this, like I have 8 CMC1 removal spells in turn 1. I'm going to have one in my hand or draw into it. Like I feel very confident. Whereas sometimes it's like, oh, you only have four or five. It's like, oh, you're pretty likely to see one in the like top
But
10
you might
cards,
not
but
see it
like
in
the
time, right?
time.
Like they might have already walloped you for 8 or whatever.
Yeah. And that's also why I think I'm like always Tamio and Ragavans and Mad Accelerants. I'm just like, we'll play more early game interaction. You won't have this problem. Like looking at you, white mid-range decks that only play like 3 pieces of removal. It's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
obviously you got
yeah.
hosed by that turn one play, or like they moxed out something, or like they turned two to Minsk and Boo and you had nothing. Well, it's like, well, yeah, that's you would have lost a lot of things. Sorry, I don't really care about your assessment.
So
Sorry, felt bad.
I'm curious. So if we step back and we say, like, let's say for example, we're right in our assessments, right? Like we think Greg's going to be on Black Red, Cameron on Jund, Matt on like Jeskai, you on say Nadu, or some sort of creature-based combo deck. Max definitely on goblins. Jason's on, like green black or what have you. Jared's on Boros, and I'm on Jeskai. What do you think is the actual like if you had no preferences for specific archetypes, what do you think is the deck that you should be bringing to the table here in this metagame?
Potentially Citadel Storm if you want to just roll the dice on op agents.
Yeah, I was actually thinking Citadel Storm as well, just because you um aren't as likely to get punished that fast, and your deck is like the fastest combo deck in the format. Like the reason that Flash Hulk is something that's hard for me to consider is because it is fast, but it isn't the fastest. Like so those op agents do come into play more often than say against Citadel Storm. So I actually think I agree with you. I think if I was looking at this metagame and I was thinking to myself, what do I think is the best deck to bring into it? It's probably something like Citadel Storm or an adjacent combo deck. I was also thinking that the like Lotus Breach Storm could potentially be really good into this metagame as well. Like
Now,
decks that can win with through Blood Moon are also like their stocks go up, especially if they're a combo deck.
yeah, I actually considered Reanimator at one point, which is a deck I played a few times, and considered to be high value. However, in this particular topic, I actually think Graveyard combo is bad. That's actually one of the reasons I'm hesitant on like a Seeker or Nadu kind of style thing, and why
Yeah, that
I
makes
devalue
sense.
Lotus combo. I think you have several players that are going to have main deck hard graveyard hate in the form of Rest in Peace, Ooze slash the other card,
Keen-Eyed
slash
Curators,
Keen-Eyed, yeah, Endurance,
Douthies,
Dothies, um,
Ghost Vacuums, like
Ghost Vacuums. Like
yeah.
a lot of people like to play Saga targets that are like Soul Guides, and I just predict there will be a lot of graveyard hate, and then incorrectly, people often play more graveyard hate when they are afraid of Flash, even though it doesn't actually like get rid of it unless it's like a recipe or something, or like a
Yeah.
Dothi. Unless it's a
Yeah.
static effect, like they'll think, oh, like I have this like scoos out, and it's like, oh, yeah, you need like 5 mana to activate. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I agree with that analysis. There's definitely going to be a lot of graveyard hate here. I mean, like we know a bunch of these players really like their graveyard interaction. Like, I mean, famously, Jason Jobin has been playing like I think what's the card called? Is it Rotten Reunion? It like exiles a card and makes a decayed zombie or something.
mhm.
Uh, so really like any of these and this is a term of endearment for these guys. Any of these sickos could be bringing any type of graveyard hate. So I think I agree with your analysis. I considered Reanimator as well because I think that deck is kind of like always in the back of my mind because it is doing like such powerful things. But yeah, if they go turn one like Ghost Vacuum into turn two Dauthi Voidwalker or whatever, like you're actually crying.
Yeah, and that's also why I wouldn't want to do a storm deck involving the graveyard, like a Lotus deck,
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like if
or
you're gonna
like
play that, you might as well just play something like Citadel Storm.
exactly. So I'd want to do like a AB, if you're gonna do like AB combo, I'd like maybe I just think Thorkel's like underpowered compared to Time Vault. And I don't think a control shell is good into this meta.
Yeah, Time
So
Vault's a little tough because you like need some time to set up a lot of the time, and these these decks that are in the metagame, they don't give you a lot of time these days.
no, I like Time Vault, I think still, but I think you get blitzed by a couple of these players sometimes, and like Time Vault is tough if they just mox out a fast opening and you don't have the interaction early. And I really resist playing like any sort of fast bond combo in that deck. I just think it's not very good. I know some other players like it, but I just don't see it. Like a Zern or fast one combo loop.
Yeah, yeah,
I assume
definitely.
that's how they're trying to beat aggro decks, but guys that often don't see that very much removal. So or they're just trying to be fast, or maybe people still play very fast decks in their metas. I don't know. Um, yeah, so I think as I play Citadel Storm deck if I was relying on just kind of like high rolling to win, like just trying to
Yeah.
like betting, like just trying to like dark side, like good percentage dark side bet on a craps table. Um, but I think that you have a couple matchups where it's not good. And although that deck performs very well, it's not hyper consistent. It's a deck that I think is like maybe the council point targeting worthy in terms of its play patterns, but it's actually a deck that I find inconsistent. And just even like watching Ben Wheeler try and come by and win with it every like few weeks to try and spike a tournament, and just always loses. And I'm just like, of course, it's because it's tough. I think it's a deck that's hard to win multiple matches with, and especially considering the finals is a 5 rounder. I think that it would struggle to win like 3+ games, like
Yeah, I think with those
and
types of combo decks as well, you gain a lot of equity when your opponent doesn't know what you're bringing to the table, right? Like if Ben comes out to play, he has the capacity to play anything in the format because he, owns the whole format in terms of his card collection, and he's a skilled enough player to be able to play whatever he wants. And so like you can assume he might be on some combo deck because that's what he really likes playing, but realistically, like you don't actually know. So if you open your hand and you're the Just Guy opponent sitting across the table and you see like, you know, uh, Plow, Lightning Bolt, 3 mana to Fairy, some other random piece of interaction in 3 lands, like you have to keep that hand, right? Like you can't
yeah,
just mulligan it. And so you get a lot of equity with those combo decks. Especially if people don't know what you're going to be playing. And that is another potential reason not to play something like Flash Hulk. Because people know, so they know that they are supposed to aggressively mulligan against you, right? Like they know
yeah,
what they're supposed to be looking for and looking to find. Like your Jund opponent doesn't keep a hand that, plays a bird, plays an irrelevant 3 drop, plays an irrelevant 4 drop, right? Like they're looking for hands that actually interact with you. So I think you're right, especially if the finals is five games, like your opponent getting to leverage 5 games worth of targeted mulligans for cards that are really good at dismantling your game plan could definitely be a recipe for disaster, especially for a deck as like potentially fragile as Citadel Storm. I know that Citadel Storm like isn't the most fragile combo deck. Like it definitely has like a lot of potential game, even if they exile your Tinker, etc. Like I recently played a matchup on the channel where I was playing against Citadel Storm and they hard cast Bolas's Citadel. So like those things definitely happen. But I think your analysis is very fair. Like if you're playing Citadel Storm, you're essentially saying to yourself like you're really happy taking the variance on that one. And if it's a longer drawn out, especially if you get to the finals, the variance will come for you eventually.
yeah, absolutely. And like Ben is an extremely skilled player, has a lot of range, likes combo. I'd say he's like extremely skilled combo player in addition to being a very good strong player. So it's not so much. I mean, like I love to dig on Ben, obviously, but my comment on watching him kind of like scrub out with the deck is more a comment on the variance of the deck because I'll watch him win several matches like not close, and then I'll watch the deck spin its wheels. And
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I'll just have to trust you because whenever I play Ben, I beat him. So, like from my
I mean,
perspective,
same,
like I
same, same. It's tough. It's
don't.
tough when you just always beat a guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
People tell me he's good, but I don't know.
I know. I recently beat him with
Um,
a Lurin, and that was a real salt wound for him, I think.
oh yeah, that one's definitely the salty piece. Maybe you and I, maybe we talk some Lauren after this, just for fun,
Just
just
for
for
fun, just for
yeah.
shits and giggles. Um, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I think Flash over Citadel Storm because I think Flash is better at spinning its wheels and digging and has some control aspects of it. Where Citadel Storm, you can sit there and sculpt, but if they have like medium clock plus perceived interaction, like, and they can't just blow, they lose a lot of equity, I think. Um, Yeah, I think it goes of the AB combo decks, assuming like we're both kind of being like, yeah, I think combo's like kind of like good into this if we weren't playing in it maybe and like didn't know the matchups, just reading all those deck lists. I think it would go Flash, then Time Vault, then like a Thassa control deck, and then Lotus Storm.
Yeah,
Then
and
maybe
Citadel
like
Storm somewhere in there.
yeah, I'd normally it's funny. I'd normally like a generic tournament, I'd rate it maybe second choice or third choice. But in this particular one, I think I'd just go I'd rate it pretty low.
Yeah.
Blue mid range decks, I would rate Esper mid range quite high. Uh, I think Jessica is just always very solid. So, but I think bl- Blue X more tempo-y, I think could have some equity here, as long as you have like late game value. But the thing with like blue these days, and I think a lot of players want to play at least four drops, but I'm like, they just have the Riddler, they have Washington, they have these late game enablers anyway that are basically your end game mid-range threats that you can just almost be a tempo-y kind of control deck. And now you don't have to play the Aragorns. You know, you don't have to play the Pyroglyphs. Like you can just play these like low drop threats and interact on these like low CMC interaction games. And then if you drop late game, you're like, oh, whoops, just super
Oh,
good.
whoops, I'm drawing three with my like 8 mana one Shitong or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I think one thing to note about Esper as well is I do think the pickup of Wan Tong is actually a really big deal for that deck because I think
hmm
the difference between Esper and Jeskai, the main difference is that um, Esper's threats just are not as good as some of Jeskai's threats. Jeskai gets access to things like Ragavan, Pyroglyph is excellent. Flage is a really big deal. Like Flage is a huge potential game ender in a lot of Jeskai games. And so when I started playing Esper, like, closer to the beginning of the year, um, I was playing like Tomb Stalker in my deck, for example, which isn't an embarrassing card by any means, but it's definitely not exactly where you want to be. Um, and so, like, Wan Tong coming into the format and, maybe looking ahead into potential other, like, sets for Esper, like, the more reasonable threats it gets to pick up, I think the better position the deck is going to be. Like, when I was building Esper, I actually decided to play Psychic Frog instead of playing another like pointed blue spell because I just wanted the threat density. Like when you look at the actual amount of threats versus pieces of interaction. Um, but I think yeah, picking up Riddler, picking up Wan Shitong, like those are two really big ones. And like you said, they allow you to play on a low CMC axis until the point where you have hit your fifth land drop, and that's really powerful in this format. So I think Esper is also a consideration for myself. I just don't know if I have like a really solid list yet.
I think if I was to play a fair deck, I'd want to play a Bear Glyph, or we'll be playing Glyphs.
Yeah, definitely. Baraglyph is Baraglyph and black cards in general are really strong, right? Like I was talking about, we only have one copy of each of our cards, save getting it from back from the graveyard. So, Thoughtseize is really, really good in this format, right? Inquisition good, Duress good. You have access to other discard spells if you want them, like if you feel like you need them, things like Dread Fugue, Dreams of Steel and Oil, etc. But then like the black threats have gotten so much better these days too, and like Baraglyph specifically is just it's just good against everyone.
Yeah, I actually think like Black White's a consideration as well in some ways.
Yeah, I have been messing around with Blink, and I think like a black white, not necessarily a full Blink shell, but like with Blink adjacent cards, um, could fare really well into this metagame. I think you just have to build it very mindfully because like I think you have the same problem as you have with Boros, where like Jund is a tougher matchup. Black Red's probably a tougher matchup, right? Like, there's a couple other decks that could either go over the top of you, something like Goblins, or go under you. Maybe something like what Jason is going to bring to the table. So, but I do think Black White is a definite consideration, especially with the power of black cards these days. Like they've gotten a lot better, and you can definitely make a deck now that is black and white and every card like there aren't that many embarrassing cards, you know what I mean? Whereas before it felt like your card quality was a little more embarrassing.
Oh yeah, Honeybee. And Yeah, I also think there's a consideration for like an Esper where it's like black, white, splash blue just for a few cards or whatever. And I've actually had success with that against Jund. I will say the one thing about Jund is they don't like it when you one for one them because that deck doesn't really have like a lot of inherent card advantage.
Yeah, definitely. Um,
Whereas like I find the Blink decks just card advantage players. It's the same reason that I think like the Alurin or any Elvish Visionary-esque deck often faces good into blue. It's because they really hate those cards because they're like they never want to waste an actual piece of cardboard on them.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Um, okay, so if you had to pick someone that isn't the two of us to take the tournament down, who do you think is would do it? Obviously, if I had to pick someone that wasn't me, I would pick you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just
I
to
think
like save face in front of the people, like
yes, yeah, exactly.
maybe behind closed doors, I pick someone else, but
Yes, yes, yes. Betray your brother. I get it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think Jared is kind of my dark horse, actually.
Yeah, I think if I was gonna pick anyone else, from the heart, like I really want to see Greg fire off a couple of good wins and maybe take it to the finals. I think he's had a couple of pretty tough losses in the last couple of years. Like he last year he got edged out by Chris Sutherland at the very last tournament that Chris could possibly overtake him for a spot into the top eight. And in the top eights before that, he was getting just punished for playing mono red essentially. So I think I'd like to see a couple of reg W's and maybe taking down the whole thing. But I think any of these guys could win for sure.
Yeah, I think it's anyone's race really. And there's a lot of players that I think they have like everyone here has a good deck that I think I could be like, oh yeah, that deck one made sense, got there.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a short tournament too. Like realistically, like you could bring a lot of different archetypes that could just spike a 3 round event, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that like incentivizes like a coin flip more, but like the finals being 5 rounds makes it like kind of tries to even it out a little bit. Um, yeah. Whereas like if it was like a, maybe like 6+ rounds plus a cut to top eight kind of style deck, then I think like, the disadvantage a lot of the combo decks of our format and some of the Mox decks as well.
I will say, looking at this metagame, I think the Magic is going to be really exciting. Like,
Yes, I'm looking forward
it,
to it. I think all the matches are gonna be good matches to watch and should be interesting and interesting players. Lots of people that are like dedicated pilots too, which I think is always sweet.
yeah, it'll definitely be low percentage on the, ships passing in the night kind of gameplay, I think. Like the if the top eight was all combo, for example, if it was like just Flash Hulk mirrors, like that obviously wouldn't be a really thrilling coverage. So I'm glad to see that we're gonna be getting a lot of like mid-range slugfest.
Third
I think
time's a charm.
And so I think these decks are going to provide a lot of that. But we'll definitely see some stops for sure. Like we'll definitely see games where people just come out of the gates crawling and running like zombies to claw their opponent down, and their opponent won't really be able to handle that. And I mean that just happens in Magic these days, especially in Lander. Sometimes with your mock straws, you just the game is over before it feels like it started. But I think for the most part, we're going to get some pretty interesting gameplay.
And it's a good thing that you brought up combat mattering, Trent, because what combat matters more than when you cast Natural Order and Crater of Behemoth enters the battlefield and
All
triggers?
right. And with that, we are going to close the podcast before Spencer brainworms me into bringing Mono Green Hoof.
Let me give you a 2-minute elevator pitch before we close. Okay, so
Okay, yeah,
picture
yeah.
picture this. All these matchups, they're just playing fair. They're not even
Oh,
thinking about visionaries. This is a matchup for a card that is near and dear to my hearts. Several of these matchups, in fact, I think. It's a card that bricks all these little 2/2s and 1/1s and 3/1s running around.
I've got it. I've
It's,
got it.
it, I know we're both thinking of a 2/5 that draws a card when it comes into
Carbon
play.
carted, baby.
You know it.
It's too good.
It's
It's
too strong.
unbeatable.
It's unbeatable. Just that curve. Turn one dork, turn two curated. Let's go.
I feel like Spencer's just gonna be sending me like pictures of random hoof cards that I definitely miss playing. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
like
yes.
he's just gonna be sending me like Query and Rangers and Natural
Mm,
Orders and like
hmm
Land
hmm
War Visionaries and Yeah, I can't wait for it. I can't wait to waffle hoof into this batter.
I think it's good into like 5 matches. Like strongly good. I would rate it quite good. And then I think there's a couple where I'm like, yeah,
He knows my heart is soft for Crater Hoof Behemoth.
it is. I mean, mine is too. If I'm almost tempted to just Nadu natural order, uh, just to have a taste of it,
Just to feel something.
just to feel something again. Yeah, it's pretty solid if you decks. I did like a natural order version of Nadu. I think it was okay. I think you're like not doing Atraxa and doing that is just silly, but like I don't want to play 2 natural order targets in that kind of deck. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I liked your natural order Nadu list. I thought that list was really interesting.
yeah, I think there's a bunch of good lists. I think that deck is pretty good, but I also don't like the fact that it can just kind of like lose to fair decks sometimes. It's interesting. Like I've always, like, you can build. I think you're generally advantaged to fair decks, but you can kind of lose to the swingy Mox hands. But you can also, you can definitely gear the deck towards beating combo or beating blue mid range, and then you're just generally good against the fair decks of the formats. However, whatever of the other 2 decks, you lose equity against the other one really bad, and then maybe the middle one if you could skew it too much because you're afraid of it. So I actually think it'd be tough to pick a version for this. And here
Also,
we are
like
talking about that deck again.
bringing a pure elf deck is so hard because like if you bring a pure elf deck and you go like elf go, they go land go, and you play elf like elf go, and they fury you on camera, like how do you come back from that? You know what I mean? Like what do you do when you go home after that? Like like
That's why you play
how do you
walls.
sleep at night? That's where the Carven Caryatid comes in.
Ugh. Yeah. Well, and I think that's why the walls in like green combo decks for acceleration shine more than people think they do. It
Especially
prevents you,
nowadays, yeah.
especially nowadays. It's like relevant blocker, relevant body, potential acceleration cradle. But mostly it's just like and like often they are cycling, but it's mostly just like the Furies don't get you as much. Like
Yeah.
Wall Roots doesn't get Furied.
Yeah, the Furies and the Pyrokinesises and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually don't. The other thing is, I don't think like Fury Pyrokinesis is strong into this top 8. Like, I don't think people are going to be packing Pyrokinesis. I mean,
No, I
people play
agree.
Fury because it's good, but they're not. I don't think people are playing Forked Bolts and like
So what you're
Forked
saying
Bolts and
is
Pyros.
Allurin is back on the menu. See, Spencer's going to be brainworming me to play Hoof, but I'm going to be sending him like pictures of Allurin and Nyambi and the Strix.
Yum. I do love the Strix. The problem, I love Alurin, and I think it's super good. Uh, I think that it doesn't have a good point spread though. It's like always on like DT or Mox or like Seeker Walk spreads, and I just think it like doesn't have any nut draws because of that, which
Yeah,
sucks.
like you look at your point spread and you just go yuck.
Yeah, it's like when I'm powering up with my Mox and like if it's not a Lurin or a combo, it's like cool. Here's I'm powering out this Uro or like this 2 walls, draw 2 cards, go. Like it's just kind of sucks. Whereas like when you're on your like Seeker Walk plan, you're like they just go Mox, other thing, 3 drop, and you're just like land elf wall visionary. Like your first 3 turns are so anemic with that deck. So, but I guess I think it just eats blue mid range decks for breakfast is the thing. Like it's not. I think it's like just crushes Jeskai and like Esper and all these blue mid range decks. Like it's a
Yeah,
joke.
like if this top eight was more blue mid range, you would definitely consider it more. Yeah.
And I think people will think I'm memeing. I'm not. Like, if you just play the deck for a while so you get some reps with it and play against blue decks, you actually know how to play against blue decks. Also, I talked to some other players with this recently too. Like, a lot of people just don't know how to play against blue. Like, I was trying to explain to some players,
Yes.
they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, you just drop your Mox and you try and power something out as fast as possible. I'm like, that's literally how they win every game against you. And they're like, what do you mean? Maybe this could be like a little like 2 minutes on like how to base blue. I think because me and you played so much Legacy. Um, I'm like, no, no, you wait till you double spell or have interaction plus that or instant speed. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, fundamentally, like if you're playing a non-blue deck and like non-combo deck, you're playing a fair creature mid-range or aggro deck against blue. Maybe aggro is a little bit different because you can like try and like get really under them if they have sweepers. But assuming it's like against specifically Jeskai, typically I'm waiting to double spell. You can play accelerants. Like there's cards I don't think they're going to counter. They're not going to counter like a visionary or a wall or like acceleration typically. Maybe they think the makeup of your hand, like against me and you might try and mind game me by like bolting like a bird or something like that right away and scrimp my like curve because you think I've kept the
Yeah,
land in
or
my
like,
hand based on how
in
I've
some
fetched.
positions I'll forcible your mocks or whatever, but like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And like, but that's like me.
But I'm
I
never
think
countering
that's
your like wall of blossoms or your like overgrown battlements or whatever, right? Like,
And you recently did something like that to me that I thought was like only Trent would do this play, only because he thinks based on what I've fetched that I kept a certain type of hand. Anyways, but I'm like, but typically most players do not do these sort of things. That's just because me and you played like 1,000 matches of Magic against each other. Um, but yeah, I can't remember. It's someone locally, and they're just talking about blue matchups, and they were just disagreeing. And I was like, well, do you win a lot? They're like, I don't win a lot against Jessica. I'm like, well, what's your strategy? Like, would you keep this hand? They're like, well, I obviously like do that, mox it out, and then cast it. And I'm like, cool. And then they interact with you, and then what? And they're like, well, then they get their second land. Like they either counter it or remove it. I'm like, and then they're like, yeah. And then what happens? They're like, they get their second land and they say go. And I'm like, Ed, what position are you in now? They're like, well, I jam again because they use one of their counters. I'm like, no, that's not what you're supposed to be doing right now.
yeah, I think
So
I've talked about it on the channel. I think you're gonna agree with me, but like, um, when you're playing against blue, um, the like oftentimes the axis that you're trying to like make awkward for them is like how they spend their mana, right?
yes,
Like because they are at a lot of the times, especially if you're playing like say let's give Jund as an example, right? Like they theoretically are like almost always at a mana disadvantage because you're playing the elves, you're playing Moxen, etc. So a lot of the time you'll enter those game states to mana advantage. But what you're losing with that mana advantage is you're losing flexibility in like how many cards you have in hand and like what you know is going to be happening in the game. Whereas like Jeskai is looking to take advantage of, like I was saying earlier, the average draws that people have, right? And the reason that you and I think one mana interaction is so important is because one mana interaction is one of the best ways to get yourself mana neutral when it comes to your opponent, say moxing out a fast creature, etc. So if you do something like that and you're playing against Jeskai, it is worth considering the following turn, like what else could they be spending their mana on, right? Like if they play their island, their second land, and they pass, are they doing anything impactful with that mana? Sometimes the answer is yes, and you're supposed to jam your one spell anyways, because the opportunity cost for them to counter that spell means they don't get to crack a clue, or they don't get to cast their waterlog teachings that's in hand to get recall, or they don't get to play their 2 mana flash flyer or whatever, like their Wan Shi Tong. But oftentimes it is correct to keep like two higher priority spells in your hand, because then they have to make the decision that the following turn. Like, what if they have a turn three play like a Teferi, but you play, your second or your third land and you just pass, and then they play their third land, and now they have a decision like, do I play a Teferi, or do I hold up a counter spell for something that maybe Teferi doesn't answer perfectly, right? And like putting blue players in those decision spaces oftentimes can lead you to extracting a little more value in terms of that like mana disparity, right?
yeah. And like so often I see like and people fall for and then the people start to one level it up. They're like, oh well, they have two lands, but they tapped one for their sorcery speed sculpt, like the Preordained Ponder or whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm good. The chance is here for me to drop my three drop. And it's like, well, clearly they just have removal, you know, if not force or days or whatever, they're gonna really get
Or
you
spell snare
or
or
spell
third
snare or whatever.
scrolling.
But even if you're like, okay, now's the chance to lay this three CMC creature threat, then they just swords or bolt it, and then they untap, or they like untap and have to fairy and bounce or something like that. That's like they're I think they're usually like showing you that they have something because they are knowingly shields down. This is obviously because I'm often playing a mana advantage deck, so a green rep deck. So if I'm like turn on bird and they don't bolt it, or and then like I have the access to the three, and like maybe they're on the play or something like that, and they go. turn two land ponder, and I'm like, well, potentially they're land light, but also like this is like a tell, I think, that like they have removal.
Yeah, like inferring information is definitely important.
Real removal, like not like or if they're like have counter heavy, then maybe they just like bolt the bird or something like that. It really
Well,
depends, like on the
and that's why
situation.
playing against blue is so hard because there are moments where even if they have two mana up, you're just supposed to jam, right? Like depending on the context of your hand or the context of like what's happening in the game. But yeah, there's it like the reason playing against blue is so hard is because finding those nuances and trying to decipher when you are supposed to jam versus when you aren't supposed to jam, like it just takes a lot of time and practice. But if you're just employing the same strategy when you're playing blue, like what you were talking about, where you play your boxed out two drop and then they kill it with a one mana removal and then they play their second land and then you play your third land and you just keep jamming. That isn't always going to be correct. Sometimes it will be. Like sometimes depending on the context of your hand, like maybe you only have the one threat and you don't have a second threat that you're working towards, so you just decide like, well, I'm already too far behind in this game, so I need to jam this like card to make up for that. Like that those situations definitely happen, but it's way more nuanced than just like jamming into the open mana and making them have it. Like there's
Yes.
definitely moments where you're not supposed to.
Yeah, I don't mean to like try to read into this that I don't think people should ever jam. I think that like you gotta like feel it sometimes and like know that the moment's right, and that's something that can come with just like playing the matchup a lot. I remember like playing Tyler at some point this year, and he's playing like a blue black deck, and I think I was playing maybe a hoof or a lure or something like that, and we just kept going Drago, 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 like making land drops, and then I think turn 3 or 4, I'm like I'll play an accelerant, and he's just like I hate playing against you. And I was like, what? I was like, oh, and he's like, this is so annoying. I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. And then some people watching were like, they're like, I thought he was just losing because he wasn't trying to jam spells. And like Tyler's like, no, that's why he won because he has like 7 cards in hand, and like now he's just gonna like triple spell in a turn. And I was like, that's exactly what happened. Basically, I think I like, cast a threat, counter, recursion, uh, then it was like 8 removal or something, and then I cast like a white, like a 2 CMC threat, and he was just like, I think that's game. And like, turn 6 or something like that, and he's just like, yeah, that's kind of game. I was like, yep, probably. Because then I still had like all these cards, like he deals with the threat or whatever it was, and on his turn, and then he tries to like lay his own threat, and I just on my turn I just have like, okay, well he's out of gas, and now it's my turn, you know?
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah, and like
if you get to play those games, and like that's also we're really talking about the blue black X decks, like if they're low on threats, then you can play those kind of like draw go games because you're just like, okay, like I can wait until you dig for your recall and like have to go, or like you try and do threat plus counter backup,
and then you
and then
just
I
overload
can
their
just
one
dump
counter spell.
you
Yeah.
overload their hand.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
all very
definitely.
like niche theory crafting, obviously, but
This is where Spencer and I's conversations always end up, though. We're just like in the niche, like in the thick of it, or like we're
yeah.
both just like tired and like messaging each other, like, okay, what about this in Hoof?
It
And
was
it's
the
just the
last,
worst card you've ever seen.
but it's funny because I think many people like are often like, oh, you're Rennie or like some like spicy like natural order target, but me and you are often being like, no, what about this fringe wall?
Yeah, or
This
like
one's
we
fringe
literally were
accelerant.
like, what if we return to carving carted? Like, is it back on the menu?
It's it back on the menu.
uh, okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
All right. Well, thanks so
Uh,
much for joining. You already plugged. I'll just tell you, yeah, we'll post them on both, and look forward to seeing the top eight this year.
yeah, I'm really excited. It's been a while since I played in the top 8, and I don't think I haven't played in the top 8 on camera, at least not with the loading ready run crew. So, I think that'll be a fun experience too. And I guess not a lot of people have ever seen me play Magic live, so you'll get to look at my all of my weird mannerisms and how I play cards and stuff, and you'll probably see me fumble a little bit, like classic Trent stuff.
I was gonna say the most iconic Trent move is the turn one tank before the land drop.
The turn one tank.
The turn one tank before the land. Most players they play their snap land then tank, but Trent often uh tanks before the land drop.
Hey, you know, like
It's the same amount of tanking I think that any other planet like person would make with like the hand that you're trying to like think through, obviously. But you do it before the land drops, so people often are trying to be like, what's the turn zero play that's happening? You know, it's very interesting, I think.
and then I'm just like, okay, I'll play my meticulous archive.
Exactly. But often I
uh,
think I've it like those and players I think that have been playing a long time pick up like honestly like a lot of land decision stuff. It's not always reflexive. You know, sometimes like four of 60 card decks, you're like, oh no, I just played like the top line first and then this and these matchups, blah, blah, blah. But in Highlander, because there's so much variance, and I think there's a lot of feels on like the matchups and stuff like that for the tempo of the game, like what lands you fetch, when you fetch them, when you get your scry lands or surveil lands, like really matters.
well, I
And
mean, like we can like you know, I don't want to. I mean, this has already gone on for a while, so like the people are just already knee deep into like an hour and a half long episode. But I won one of my QPs against you in the finals because I decided not to crack a fetch land on at the end of your turn to get a surveil land because I decided that the value of the surveil was lower in terms of equity than the potential detriment of you having opposition agent and taking that land from me. And then I untapped, played my like fourth land or whatever, cracked my fetch land, and you played your opposition agent, and I was able to counterspell it. And like that
yes,
actually won me the game. And I remember
yes.
you like picking up your pen to write down the fetch land, like you were trying to pen trick me. And
Mm,
and
I'm infamous for the pen trick.
I remember after the game you were like, no one else would have not fetched there. Like you motherfucker. Like, you know, it's like, God damn it. Like, I can't
That's
believe you didn't fetch there. Like, you're such a sicko. Like, you don't want your, you know, your surveil value or whatever. And I was like, I can't help it, man. I saw it. I saw it.
It's funny playing with
uh,
like there's people like yourself and Pat and like Ben, you know, who just over like a decade plus of Magic that you just play so many matches with, and there's things you're like, I would never make this play blind against a player, but I'm playing against the player playing against me, and I know some things about them, and the odds, like the edges you can get against certain people, is pretty high.
totally. I recently was
Like,
playing Jared was able to visit and we were playing some over the table Magic and he was making some plays where I was like, I'm not used to this anymore. Like I'm not used to how good you are and specifically how you play. You know what I mean?
oh, absolutely. And there's other players like obviously like Priscilla and like Noel. Um, you know, Jeremy back in the day. I haven't played him in a long time, but who we used to like. I just feel like I played against him so much. Josh Lane, you know, quite one of the better players of the format, I'd say, at one point. You know, and like you just pick up some mannerisms and things like that, and sometimes like you feel like they can leverage that against you, and sometimes you can leverage it against them, and then you're kind of like metaing against that player because you're like, oh, they did that thing when they have removal, like the little taunt, like very like poker. And you know, Pat Verduzco has always been quite good at that kind of stuff. Like he's always playing against the player, not really like he's playing a different game usually. He's like, oh, I just felt they didn't have anything because they touched the way they touched their cards. And I'm
Yeah,
like, and
yeah,
he's always
yeah.
right. That guy is insane reads. He's like, hmm, the way that they like made that noise with their teeth, they have removal. You
Like
know
they
what I
for
mean?
sure yeah, like
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 he's just like I played this creature and they touched their nose, so I know they have nothing, and that's why I went for the combo. And I'm always just like, he just has the cold nut read on so many people.
well and that's like sometimes when you and I play, like you know, say you play a Mox and you're like, you don't have to force will. And I just like fire it off because I have to. Because like as soon as you said that, it's like, okay, he knows. Like he smells what's in the air, you know, like I need to get this out of my hand.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a couple players I'm like, they think I'm about to pen trick them, but I have nothing. So I'll try and pen trick, and then they're like, haha, and then they play on this non-existent op agent. You know.
And you try
Um,
to pen trick me and I like don't even notice.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, maybe he'll think I know that I'm gonna fake the pen trick, so I'm gonna pen trick. But he knows that I'm thinking that. so you won't
The
play around it
classic
anyway.
battle of wits. The
The
like if
triple goozle.
yeah, the if you put a goblet into your in front of you or your enemy, like um okay, well, thanks for
Yeah,
having
that's
me
fair.
on.
Of course.
It's been a blast. I really love talking about Magic with you, and I love it's been fun to talk about the top eight this year in a way where like I'm more involved in it. Like obviously I've been talking about it for the last 3 years, commentating and talking with other people about what I think is going to happen. And last say I don't think it was it last year? Yeah, last year you and I tested a lot for Just Guy versus Nadu, and that was fun. But it's going to be exciting to play some like stakes magic on camera for the first time in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that I meet you in the finals
Oh, that would be so fun.
for
Oh,
our mirror.
oh yeah, for our mirror. Oh God, no.
For the mirror, is it more advantageous to go drop drop with your elves,
Dude.
or do you want to search the cradle first?
His influence over me is too powerful.
Oh, and then
Uh,
then for the mirror, you have to play Rennie, obviously, or
yeah.
Dragon Lord of Tarka.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, the mirror
Yeah.
breaker, as it
Yeah,
were.
the mirror breakers. Yeah, there's a bunch of good mirror breakers actually.
All right.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Have a good night. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, buddy.